With so many indie games releasing on a daily basis, it can be hard to keep track of them all, I get it. A big part of why we started I Dream of Indie Games is to bring a voice and visibility to indie developers and publishers. But for as hard as we try, many games still get overlooked and never find a significant audience. Today I would like to point out 10 outstanding indie games that very few people played and have been all but forgotten. But hey, before that, don't forget about us. Head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames and support indie game visibility. You'll gain Discord access, early ad-free shows, exclusive podcasts, shoutouts at the end of every video we produce, and even free games depending on the tier. Your new indie gaming community is waiting. Also, be sure to head over to twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames where Nia is live streaming awesome indie releases every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. I know she looks forward to seeing you over there. Alright, let's get into the list, and do note we have reviews for a bunch of these games in the description box below. First up, released in the dead of winter 2021, a common dead zone for indie games, White Shadows came out of nowhere and dazzled me with its compelling black and white aesthetic, stirring thematic tones, and fun puzzle design. Running at a short 3 hours, White Shadows more than makes up for its short playtime and how memorable it is. White Shadows is one of those games that will leave players thinking long after they've completed it. From oppression to inequality, the game doesn't shy away from heavy-handed topics. Divided by two sides, light and darkness, you navigate a corrupted city in an attempt to unravel more of this dark mystery. Gameplay involves a bit of platforming, along with some puzzle solving. Yes, it could be argued that the game could have used a bit more of everything, it is short, but what's here is really well done, and I wasn't exactly feeling unsatisfied by the time the credits had rolled. All told, White Shadow's excellent visuals and fun puzzle platforming make it well worth your time. It's a shame more people aren't talking about this excellent release, but sometimes as an indie dev, you roll the dice releasing a game in December. Let us know if you ever gave it a go. On to the next game. While the publisher of this one is sadly no longer with us, just as of recently, Unepic Fran made one hell of a funny parody game with UnMetal. UnMetal is a retro stealth title that pokes fun at the classic series Metal Gear. You'll play as Jesse Fox, attempting to break out of prison and stop an evil corporation. The gameplay is more or less what you would expect, a mix of hand-to-hand combat, shooting, and stealth with a few puzzle elements tossed in for good measure. But it's the humor of UnMetal that really steals the show. The game had me laughing my butt off between the well-written script, lovely pixelated graphics, great voice acting, and fun soundtrack. UnMetal is an easy recommendation. While the game has its fans, it's rare that I hear it mentioned all that often anymore, making this an overlooked indie gem. How about next we go to a fighting game, one that a lot of people slept on, and it's greatly underrated in my opinion. We're talking about Phantom Breaker Omnia. Sure, this is a revamped version of an old game, but it feels really fantastic to play if you ask me. We don't get a ton of fighting games here at the channel, so when we do, we always hope they're great, and thankfully this one was. Wonderful anime graphics and special attacks, fun guest characters, smooth fighting engine. It's all here. The revamped soundtrack and 3 new fighting styles are a blast to use. The game even has a halfway decent narrative as far as fighting games go. This is a game that newcomers can hop in and have fun with, but also has enough intricacies where hardcore fighting fan players can have an appreciation for what it does as well. Phantom Breaker Omnia is a great time and comes highly recommended from me. It has tons of modes to choose between, wonderful visuals, great sound, bravo I say. From a fighting game then to a JRPG, next up is one of my favorite indie games of all time. Hell, it's one of my favorite games of all time. We're talking about the outstanding release that was Rise of the Third Power. I have no clue why so many middling reviews came out for this game, or why not nearly enough people are discussing it, because this is an outstanding release. The politically charged story is so dramatic, very compelling, it's just phenomenal, full of rich lore, and it has one of my favorite casts in any RPG ever. While the pixel art isn't next level, it's still very well done, but beyond that, the outstanding writing, great battle system, and stirring soundtrack are where Rise of the Third Power truly shines. I've heard that one of the writers behind Rise of the Third Power has now left the company, which is a major bummer as I was hoping to see the release of a true sequel. That day may not come, but at least I will always have this excellent release. You should check it out for sure if you're a fan of turn-based JRPGs. Look no further than Rise of the Third Power. It will leave you mesmerized. Pretty eclectic mix here of games so far, right? Well, let's go to an arcade sports game next. Yeah, I'm just as surprised as you are, but this release is honestly well forgotten at this point as far as I can tell, which is really a huge shame as it's fantastic. We're talking about Windjammers 2, the sequel to a 1994 cult classic. Windjammers 2 offered more of everything: improved visuals, mechanics, and sound, along with tons of characters and locations to play in. Tossing a frisbee has never been so much fun. There is a science to this game, so while it may seem easy enough on the surface, players can master skills and get really good at it. I love the new art direction they took, which makes the game maintain its retro feel, but also freshens things up for modern times. And of course, there's multiplayer. Going against friends is a blast, whether it's locally or online, making the game endlessly replayable. Why does it seem like Windjammers 2 just didn't catch fire? I'm not totally sure. Perhaps it was too long between the original release and this one, or they just didn't get the release date timing right. Either way, grab this one for sure, or at least add it to your wishlist. Onward then, we have Tandem: A Tale of Shadows, a game where I'm not sure the publisher realized how good of a product they had. This jaw-dropping puzzle platformer has you playing as young Emma and her teddy bear Fenton. Together they will manipulate environments using light. They'll solve brain-bending puzzles along the way. I love how these two characters need to work together as they both possess unique abilities. The game is smart and also really amazing looking with some outstanding shadow effects. Your quest for the magician Thomas Kane will often switch between views, becoming a side-scroller at times, and in other moments presenting a top-down view. While many people did take a doo-doo on this one, thinking the puzzles were a bit too easy for them, which is fair, I personally really enjoy this title and I think it's well worth your time. It does go on sale pretty often, and it's at least worth adding to your wish list, especially if you're a Tim Burton fan. A lot of that art style going on here. Alright, let's go with an action-packed 2D arcade romp next. How about the excellent Steel Assault? Talk about a game that came and went. Steel Assault features fast-paced action, huge explosions, and awesome retro visuals and sound effects. If you love classic arcade games, this one's going to be a no-brainer. You play as Taro Takahashi and will be treated to a standard mode or an arcade mode. The arcade mode is very difficult, so I would start with standard myself. The twist on the familiar formula here is a zipline mechanic, which can be shot off in different directions. It's very important to avoid taking damage, especially later in the game. While this one is short, as I mentioned, there are plenty of ways to challenge yourself that could keep you coming back for more and more runs. Steel Assault features a decent checkpoint system as well, and even a few unlockables. Also, some really cool power-ups, though I admit the game could have used a few more. Small flaws aside, Steel Assault is a sight to behold with tons of bosses, enemies, and explosions. It's a blast, literally. Oh, and the Mega Man X style soundtrack, way too good. Grab this one for sure. On to the top 3 for this list, we have SkateBird next, a game that really did not review very well outside of Silent Signs here at I Dream of Indie Games, really enjoying it. But I say screw that echo chamber because this game is really fun. I'm with Silent Signs. You essentially get to play a stripped down version of Tony Hawk as a bird, and it's every bit as amusing as it sounds. Shred and grind your way through a variety of bird-sized parks while equipping fresh gear to make your bird all that much more adorable. Is it great mechanically? Well, I can't say it feels perfect. Yes, there is some jank to this one without question, but you do eventually get a handle on the controls. If you're okay with some of those indie shortcomings, SkateBird is still a really fun skateboarding game that's adorable to boot. If you're looking for a budget Tony Hawk style skater but with birds, well, that's kind of a specific thing to be looking for, but here you go. From birds to portals, I will next turn to the criminally underrated Unbound Worlds Apart. This lovely puzzle platformer never gets all that much respect, but I personally think it's a very fun game to play. You'll take control of the mage Soli, traveling between different worlds and utilizing portals to solve puzzles in some pretty unique ways. It's not just one style of portal you'll be working with, however, as there are a variety, I believe 10 in total, that all have unique effects. These portals do add a fresh dimension to the game and create some very clever solutions. The hand-drawn visuals visuals are pretty good as well, and the soundtrack is quite good and fits the setting of the situation perfectly. If you're up for a unique puzzle platformer, it comes highly recommended from me. I wish more people had played it, as I just don't hear it mentioned all that often these days. Yo, you are a rock star if you made it to the bottom of this list and you didn't skip ahead. Mad props. Thank you so much for sticking with me. We hope you've enjoyed all of the games featured here. Let's close it out with a spooky title. One that is very small, smaller indie indeed, the ER Patient Typhon. Odd naming aside, it is a game that successfully creates a very tense atmosphere. While not for the faint of heart or those who hate gore, this is a very spooky experience. You wake up on a medical bed having had your arms removed and are now being fed an endless supply of drugs. That should tell you what you're in for with this one, kind of like a Marilyn Manson or Trent Reznor music video brought to life. The storytelling is effective, and it's a pretty easy game to play without that many mechanics. It's mostly puzzle-based. Some of the puzzles are really great, while others, I will admit, are not quite as strong. While the movement speed was kind of on the slower side for my liking, I love the atmosphere, sound design, and visuals of this one. I don't think a lot of folks grabbed this title, but horror fans should do themselves a favor and check it out. Do note it does have a bit of stealth as well, but not a ton. This developer also went on to create Anglerfish, which you should also check out. It's wonderful. And that's gonna do it for this list, folks. Thank you so much. We hope you've discovered an indie that really didn't sell or take off that well, but now you have an opportunity to play it. As always, thank you for supporting independent content here. Head over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to help us further. You'll gain Discord access, early ad-free shows, and so much more. Twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames for OK Nia. We have links for merch and more in the description box below. Help us bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming. We love you all greatly, and I'll see you on the channel for more wonderful indie gaming reviews and other content just like this.